many of the details of the downed F-15 pilot in Iran and the heroic rescue efforts that went underway and thankfully saved this pilot will blow your mind.
Breaking news coming into Fox News Channel. The president has now been briefed on a downed F-15 fighter jet in Iran. This is a U.S. fighter jet.
Let's get into the details.
News can report that on Saturday morning, the CIA was able to locate and confirm this U.S. service member in a mountain ridge south of the city of Isfahan, and that is when the appropriate calls were made to relevant parties, including the Secretary of War, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, and the President himself, who ultimately ordered this operation. And within 12 hours, we can report there were U.S. Special Forces on the ground inside of Iran rescuing this U.S. service member. Fox News has learned that after the fighter jet was shot down on Friday, the weapons systems officer hiked to an elevated mountain ridge where he hid and waited for retrieval. The pilot of the jet was rescued by U.S. Special Forces on Friday, but President Trump said they waited to confirm as to not jeopardize this second operation. The president added, quote, "This is the first time in military memory that 2 U.S. pilots have been rescued separately deep in enemy territory." The IDF said they avoided striking this area as American planes and helicopters flew at a low altitude.
So again, there's more details, and they're absolutely mind-blowing as to what these 2 heroic pilots and their heroic rescue teams that safely brought them back from enemy territory did. Fascinating details. Let's get to some of them. First off, sounds that, again, these are early reports, that both of the rescued crew members were religious. That the crew member, one of the individuals, survived more than 24 hours on mountains while he was wounded from his emergency departure from his plane that was obviously compromised. Over 200 U.S. Special Forces soldiers were participating in the rescue of both of these soldiers. It was indeed an F-15, one of the most advanced fighter jets in our arsenal at the Air Force. It was shot down, and again, this is baffling, and I'm not certain how this could happen, or if it's just a matter of luck, by a shoulder-fired missile by the Iranians. This officer, one of the individuals here, hid in a crevice up on top of a mountain, and again was found by some of our heat sensors and satellite systems. Now, this is where you can't deny that this was divine inspiration as well. One of the officers, upon ejecting, or just before ejecting from his plane, reported over the airwaves that God is good, and then pulled his ejection handle. The 2 crew members of this F-15 were spread apart by a couple miles, and hundreds of IRGC, which are obviously the Revolutionary Guard soldiers of Iran, they were everywhere. This would be one of the biggest manhunts and biggest prizes to date that the Iranian army could get. The CIA, interestingly, and this goes to the thumbnail that I had on this video, they were initiating some deception campaigns and trying to bring the IRGC manhunt into a different direction and away from the 2 pilots. And as you heard in the news hit, Donald Trump was intentionally staying out of public messaging on the activities with either of these 2 pilots, as to, again, try to get the CIA's diversion of the Iranian forces away from where the soldiers really were. So again, the airmen, they evaded Iranian forces by hiking up a 7,000-foot ridgeline while wounded. And again, our heroic rescue teams really saved the day, thankfully, in bringing this to conclusion. So again, in summary, 1 F-15 jet was shot down by a shoulder-fired missile. IRGC insurgents then went for a manhunt because the prize of an American pilot would be huge in the propaganda war, both internal to Iran and obviously the counter propaganda that the rest of the world's watching this war-fighting stance. And again, the beauty, and this is where I want to leave this video, is that one of the pilots, or one of the service members that was on the damaged F-15 before ejection, said God is good, pulled his chute, and was rescued a short 24 hours later. I'm sure it didn't seem very short for him. All of our prayers for the men and women of both the rescue forces and our American Air Force, who is in harm's way and thankfully averted a terrible crisis in getting kidnapped and possessed by the IRGC at this very delicate moment in the war. If you've yet to subscribe to America First Alerts, please do so. We'd love to have you along for the ride. Our very next story is not one that you're going to want to miss. We detail all of the efforts and the latest on the alleged hospice fraud that we're starting to see develop in some of the blue states. This one story specifically breaks down everything that you need to know about what's going on in California with the alleged hospice fraud under Gavin Newsom's watch. Be sure to watch that. It's coming up next.